Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and remember to subscribe. You can also follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon. We've talked before how Tesla is at such an advantage with their technology that they're the only company to get a sufficient range out of LFP batteries, at least without using excessive quantities of batteries. LFP batteries being iron-based means they cost significantly less than the nickel-based equivalents, which means Tesla saves a fortune on battery packs when compared to the competition. We continually hear that battery constraint is a major hurdle in EVs, but actually that's nickel-based batteries. The same may not be true for iron-based batteries. Now this is such a huge cost saving, being that batteries are the highest cost part of the car, but there's the other advantage too. LFP batteries are significantly more abundant. CATL seem to have no issue scaling up their production and supply of iron batteries. I would say that CATL would have also been doing their own R&D too, and given that they're the largest battery manufacturer in the world, we might see some improvement on energy density soon enough. I believe that CATL are at around 125 watts per kg, and BYD's Blade battery is at 140 watts per kg. That's a 12% improvement in energy density, and also supposedly something like $70 kilowatt hour for BYD, compared to CATL at around $100 per kilowatt hour. And what if Tesla have also helped CATL in their LFP technology as well? Maybe these huge quantities CATL are doing will be more efficient again and cheaper. As supply increases, we would expect prices to decrease and technologies to become more efficient, especially now so much money is headed in the direction of batteries. But either way, it would mean that these batteries, that Tesla most likely has a lion's share of, will mainly be only suited for Teslas in order to achieve that 250 to 300 miles range. If Legacy attempted to use LFP batteries, perhaps they'd only get around 200 miles of range in their vehicles, or perhaps even less. I think Tesla could even do a single motor Cybertruck with LFP batteries. The demand for a Cybertruck at around $32,000 is going to be insane, which is the entry-level Cybertruck with the EV rebate, and then imagine if it lasts for 10 years at around that price. Not to mention perhaps $2,000 to $5,000 a year of savings on fuel, depending on how much you drive in an equivalent ICE pickup truck. I think Tesla could also get away with LFP batteries in their semi-trucks as well, at least for some routes, and simply place enough chargers on those routes. If the trucks are driving themselves, then it doesn't matter if the trucks have to spend 4 hours charging every 24 hours. That's still less time than a driver spends sleeping. Even if it's only 200 miles of range, Tesla could make that work. If Tesla want to ramp up the fastest they can, whilst as low cost of production as possible, then this is the obvious step forward for them, to be the biggest they can, the earliest. And if they can achieve a 280 to 300 mile range Model Y for around $45,000 before any credits, that would be the highest demand product for Tesla right now. And it is the product they could potentially supply the most to that soon as well. That will be the big seller, and hugely profitable, and I think it would be the sweet spot for range and price. Then imagine on top of that how well that car would sell with credits. If the ICE manufacturers are also having trouble with chip shortages too, and struggling to produce vehicles profitably, then that will mean that Tesla will have even more demand for their products. So this is what's happening. There'll be fewer new legacy ICE vehicles for sale due to collapsing demand and component issues. This is also affecting Legacy's EVs as well as their ICE. Anyway, all this lack of supply from legacy autos will mean that Tesla will have more demand. And then Tesla's become $8,000 or so cheaper through the EV bill, and then perhaps Tesla launch a standard range LFP Model Y in the US. So a new Model Y price goes from about $54,000 to possibly mid to high 30,000s. And then Tesla have a really big factory in Texas that could even have a capacity of around 4 million cars a year. That will also be selling the Cybertruck that now only starts at $32,000, even less than a Model Y. Imagine how many people will order a Cybertruck at those prices. I mean, Tesla are aware of these numbers too. Perhaps the Cybertruck will eventually be so simple to manufacture that they may be coming off the line at Giga Texas in record time. There's going to be so much demand for them. Tesla will just be making them as fast as they can. And with their simple shape and no paint, it really will be interesting to see what difference it all makes in production. It wouldn't make sense to just milk the top of the market, selling only the long range and performance, if you can deliver 5 times as many vehicles offering LFP. And the LFP savings might even mean they nearly make as much profit anyway. And of course the same for Germany too. Sell a standard range to the rest of Europe from the Berlin factory. Therefore, if Tesla truly had a competitor, then it would be an auto company that had a car with an amazing drag coefficient, very efficient drivetrain and motor with great software, a structured battery pack that was making the most of LFP battery power, front and rear die-casts, perhaps not essential, but could be added later. Then you might have an EV comparable to Tesla, likely able to achieve above 250 miles of range with a 60 kilowatt hour battery pack in a Model 3 competitor. Of course, there's all the other cost-saving techniques that Tesla use that they could try and engineer around, like the octavalve and the heat pump required for more efficiency. But even after all that, at the end of the day, you still only have an EV with decent range at a decent price. Nothing like over-the-air updates, and of course it wouldn't drive itself either. And it's still going to cost more to make than a Model 3. Oh, and even if it's successful, it will be hard to find enough batteries to make more than 50,000 a year, although perhaps not as hard with LFP. Starting a new car is such a big barrier to entry in any scenario. But when there's already a competitor in the space, already mass producing, selling them, making a profit at a price you can't even make them for, then it becomes a significantly larger barrier to entry. Eventually the economies of scale are going to be such a level, price will not be the way to compete. And it's not like Dodge or Cadillac tried to compete with Ford's Model T by making an even cheaper version of an automobile. They had to find markets that Ford were missing. Well, Tesla have created the modern day Model T Ford. It is so efficient in its production and vertical integration, no one can ever make anything cheaper, and they won't be able to make it faster either. The only reason Ford didn't maintain their market share was complacency and not moving with the latest trends of what consumers wanted. Legacy autos have to bring out new cars that are not going to be in Tesla's path. But for some reason, Volkswagen look like they want to compete head-to-head with the Model 2, which will be the best-selling car ever. There's no point trying to undercut Tesla, especially not legacy autos. It would be like trying to make a cheaper Model T. The effort for vertical integration isn't feasible, especially when the Model 2 will outsell the next compact EV by probably more than 20 times. Legacy autos need to be rebranding themselves right now to establish a segment in the market. Mercedes should be positioning themselves as the luxurious EV, for example. They don't have safety on their side anymore though, as Tesla is just so much safer. Porsche should be positioning themselves as a sporty EV perhaps. Instead, they're just arbitrarily creating EV products that were in Tesla's market. They should be building brand value instead. So when the time comes to be thinking about an expensive luxury EV, that perhaps you might think of Mercedes. I think any legacy auto that attempts to go head-to-head with Tesla will have issues, like the Mach-E and ID.4 attempting to compete with the Model Y. I can't wait until that Berlin factory gets going and we actually see the true lead Model Y has over the others when there is less supply issue. Like I always say though, at the end of the day, it always comes down to battery supply. But if everyone is requiring nickel-based batteries because none of their cars are efficient enough to produce iron-based batteries, then perhaps the constraint is only for nickel batteries and not iron-based batteries. Nickel is gaining negative issues with its reputation too. Turning nickel into a product that can be used in manufacturing can require the use of high-pressure acid leaching, a process that creates 1.5 tons of waste per ton of product. The waste has been found to be disposed at sea due to the risks involved with storing it on land. Iron is a much cleaner process and much more in line with Tesla's ethos. Also, because LFP batteries have the high operating temperature of the battery-enabled the use of low surface area graphite in its anodes, it extends the life of an electric car battery to around 2 million miles. Alright, you get it. I think LFP has a ton of advantages. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.